What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about what kind of adventure motorcycles are available on the Indonesian market and which one is the best in my point of view, and it's just engage myself, but which one I will recommend. And we are going to categorize those motorcycles in 3 categories. I will explain why, because we have 12 models that we are going to talk about. And we are going to talk about the below 250cc market, which range from a price of 2,700 euro to 5,000 euro. Then we will talk about above 250cc, but with a price range between 6,000 euro and 7,000 euro. And then we will finish with what I call the overpriced motorcycle. And those bikes are over 10,000 euro, but below 40,000 euro. I will not propose in this listing the bikes that are completely unaffordable and can be like 40,000 euro. Basically, I will not talk about the BMW F850 GS, 1250 GS, Africa Twin, etc. because I talk about those bikes before in the previous video about why the motorcycles in Indonesia are so expensive. So we are going to start this video with the first bike, which is the cheapest. It's the Viar Vortex 250cc or the Zhongshan RX3, not the RX3S, which is also available, but we will talk about that later. But we're going to start with the Viar Vortex 250cc. So first of all, knowing a little bit about the development of that bike. So it's a single cylinder 250cc. Actually, the engine is coming from a development that was made by another brand, Minerva Megeli, that were creating a single cylinder bike that I had. It was a Minerva Megeli Zax 250 naked for my bike. And in Indonesia, they started to brand it under another brand, an Indonesian brand named Viar, and it became the Viar Vortex 250cc. A small adventure bike, well equipped with crash bar, panniers, boxes. It's a small single cylinder with a power deliverance of 25 horsepower at 9,000 RPM, with a torque of 22.5 Newton meter at 7,000 RPM, which is a very good power plant for a small displacement bike, because this bike only weighs 175 kilo. It has a 16-liter tank, and it has a good functionality for adventure, because you have a 17-inch rear wheel and a 19 front spoke wheel. No ABS though, and no central stand, but it's a nice little bike with a very nice ground clearance, around 210 millimeter, and it's priced at 2,761 euro or 45 million rupiah on the road Bali, Indonesia. The plus of that bike are the price, the handling, and the equipment, because for that price you have a fully functional little adventure motorcycle that you can bring everywhere. The negative aspect of that bike are the engine, the gearbox. I remember when I had my Zax, Minerva Megeli Zax, I had some problem with the gearbox and the resale, because nobody really knows this bike in Indonesia, and you don't have a lot of place and point to do the maintenance and the service. Second bike in this listing, we have the Benelli TRK 251cc. So this bike was introduced in Indonesia last year in 2019. I was invited to the launching of that bike in Bali. It's a bike at 57 million rupiah, which is 3,500 euro approximately. It developed exactly the same power as the Viar Vortex, the Zhongshan RX3. It's a 24.5 horsepower at 9,000 RPM, and it has 21 Newton meter of torque at 7,000 RPM. So it's exactly the same performance as the Viar Vortex, and it's also a single cylinder. Very nice bike, a bit heavier, 196 kilo, but very good equipment as well. And finally, a little adventure bike with the ABS system that you can switch on and off. Very nice feature. Very well built bike. You also have the bracket for the box. It doesn't come with the box and everything, but you already have the bracket to put the luggage. The tank is also approximately the same as the VR. It's a 16.5 liter tanks, so it gives you a long range. You can do more than 300 kilometers on one full tank, and it's a perfect little adventure bike. The plus of that bike are the price, the handling is very easy to handle, the equipment, because ABS, being able to switch off the ABS, etc. It's very nice. It's also equipped with LED light. It's very nice equipment. The negative point are the resale and the size for taller person, because I found that for my size, I'm 180 centimeters for 83 kilo. The bike was a bit small for my size, but otherwise for most of the rider it will be welcome. So it's a very nice little bike to consider if you want to do adventure motorcycle in Indonesia. The third bike that we are going to talk in this video is the Kawasaki Versys X-Tour 250. So it's actually the bike that I own, so I know this bike very, very well. It's a 250cc. The price tag is 81. It's a twin cylinder, 250cc. The price tag is 81 million rupiah, which make in terms of euro 5,000 euro, roughly 4,969 euro. The power deliverance is higher, and it's actually the highest in this class, 250cc. It's 34 horsepower at 10,500 RPM and 21.7 Newton meter of torque at 10,000. The weight is exactly like the Viar Vortex. It's 173 kilo, so it's not so heavy for a twin cylinder. It has a 17 liter tank, and I know that the range of that bike, you can get 350 kilometers of range or 400 kilometers of range with the full tank. It has the ABS, but you don't have a button to switch off the ABS, but you can switch it off by putting the bike on the central stand and trick the ABS. You just have to follow one of my videos that explains that very well. You have a central stand as well. You have spoke wheels, 17 at the rear, 19 in the front, and it makes a very nice bike to go around Indonesia. And you can see as soon as you change the tire and you put something a bit more off-road, you can really adventure yourself a bit more off-road. The quality, so the plus and minus of that bike, the quality building of that bike is impressive. I like the fact that you feel good on the bike, you feel the quality is really superior compared to the two previous bikes that we saw. The maintenance is easy. The maintenance and the number of garage that can maintain your bike in Bali and in Indonesia are a lot. Like, it's easy to maintain and to find the spare part, especially because the engine share the same engine with the Ninja 250 FE, the first generation of injection. The minus part of this bike is the resale, because I realized that now that I want to sell it and to buy a new motorcycle, I realized that it's not really easy to resell because it was not a success really in Indonesia. I hope now that I talk about it more, it will be one. And then the engine, because as it's using a twin cylinder that have the power range at very high RPM, because it's between 10,500 and sometimes you have some spec that say it's 11,500 for the max power. You have to rev it up all the time, so I will say that's the negative part of that bike. And for people who follow the channel, you know that I made the first review of that bike and I hated that bike so much. The title was "Where is the power, where is the torque?" It's because I had a lot of difficulty to like that bike from the first try and the first test ride. But now that I own it and I have 18,000 kilometers with it, I learn how to appreciate that bike and I enjoy it. Now, if I want to sell it and to go for something bigger, it's because with the travel that I'm making, I need a lot of luggage, and it's true that if you charge this bike with a lot of luggage, you feel the limit of a 250cc small bike. Now let's talk about the Honda CRF 250 Rally. This bike is a single cylinder of 23 horsepower. So actually it's the bike that developed the less power compared to all the three bikes we saw before, for 22 Newton meter of torque at 7,000 RPM, good torque at low RPM. The biggest ground clearance of all, it's a 270 millimeter of ground clearance for that bike. It's really where you see that this bike is a trail bike that was disguised in adventure bike. The weight is the lightest of all the bike that we saw. It's 157 kilo. And it also has a smaller tank. It's only a 10-liter tank, but as Honda made a lot of effort on the injection, this bike is capable of doing 300 kilometers with 10 liter, so that's quite impressive. No ABS for Indonesian market, no central stand, and a true adventure style for off-road, because you have a 17-inch spoke wheel at the rear and a 21 front wheel. So it makes the most capable off-road capable of all the bike that we saw. But unfortunately, I will say that it's not really a good choice for the road, for the touring on the road. And that's where we're going to see the plus and the minus of that bike. So the plus is the build quality. I love Honda. I really appreciate the fact that they are making a very strong bike and very easy to maintain. The resale price is easy because the price of this bike in Indonesia is 82 million. That's the most expensive adventure bike for 250cc right now on the market. 5,031 euro exactly. It's a bit more expensive than my Versys X-Tour ABS. But the resale is very easy right now on the market for used bike. But the negative point are it's not really an adventure bike, because for the luggage you will find very quickly that the bike doesn't respond very well, or if you want to put really luggage and to go far with it, you will have to change the suspension, especially the rear one, because otherwise the bike will go completely down. The price, because it's the most expensive bike right now on the market, and the fact that you have no ABS at all, which is honestly nowadays in 2020 you need ABS. I mean, come on guys, for this bike you should deliver it in Indonesia with ABS. And that's it for the 250 class. If you ask myself what is my personal choice for 250cc bike in Indonesia for adventure, I will choose again the Kawasaki Versys 250 X-Tour ABS, because honestly, for the price and the quality build of that bike, you have a truly little adventure bike that can do good touring all around Indonesia. So it's actually the bike that I chose. No surprise there. Even if I really like the CRF, you know why, but if I consider touring with it, I will not tour and I will not go far with a CRF 250 Rally. Okay, so now let's talk about the bike that are over 6,000 euros, 6,000 to 7,000 euros. So you will see that in this list, you have 4 bikes mainly. The cheapest one is right now the SOIB 400 Adventure. So for those who do not know SOIB, it's actually a brand that was created by Sofian Ibrahim, who was a very successful importer of motorcycles in Indonesia and especially in Jakarta, with his shop named Obi Motor. And Sofian Ibrahim decided to actually import a brand that you know around the world under another name, which is MASH. And MASH is well known around the world to be a French motorcycle made in China, and now success in France, because you have the MASH 400 and the MASH Adventure 400. So in Indonesia, it's imported under the name SOIB. This bike is distributed in Indonesia at a price of 90 million rupiah, which is 5,500 euro. So it's only 500 euro more expensive than a CRF 250 Rally, but it's a 400cc single cylinder that develop a power of 29 horsepower at 7,500 RPM and has a huge torque of 31 Newton meter at 5,500 RPM. It's a very interesting engine for doing adventure and off-roading. It's also the most adapted for off-road because this bike has an 18-inch rear wheel and a 21 front spoke wheel. So this is the first bike from all this listing that has an 18 rear and 21 front, like the Royal Enfield. We're going to talk about the Royal Enfield just after. In terms of weight, this bike, the SOIB Adventure 400, is only 151 kilo, which is very light for 400cc. It's still a carburetor, it doesn't have injection. The tank is a 19 liter, so you can easily make 300 to 350 kilometers with one full tank. It doesn't have ABS, unfortunately, the bike is way too old. It has a central stand. And then it has a huge ground clearance because you have 310 millimeter of ground clearance on that bike. Great adventure bike, and in terms of economy, a very, very good price. Now, resale will be completely impossible, and maintenance, well, you will have to be a good mechanic because I think you will have to do all the maintenance of that bike yourself, as there is no network for distribution of that bike in Indonesia, unfortunately. And now we are going to talk about the Royal Enfield Himalayan. So the Royal Enfield Himalayan is a 411cc single cylinder, developing very poorly 24.5 horsepower at 6,500 RPM, but a good torque at 32 Newton meter of torque at 4,250 RPM. Its weight, it's quite a heavy. It is a quite heavy bike because the weight is 191 kilo, so very low power and very big weight. So it's a big elephant on the road. The tank is 15 liter, but you have a very small consumption. It is right now an injection in Indonesia. Unfortunately, in Indonesia, just like the Honda CRF 250 Rally, we don't have the version with ABS, so no ABS for Indonesia, such a shame. But you have a central stand, and so a very good adventure bike. I will say that for the positive part of that bike is very easy to handle and for sure no power, so you will not scare yourself with that bike. Negative point of that bike is that honestly, for the price tag that they ask, because they ask for 100 million rupiah, which is 6,135 euro, well, you have a very expensive motorcycle that doesn't do a lot. And honestly, if you really like riding, I will pass on that bike because from all the bikes that we are going to talk today, that's the one that I like the less. Let's talk now about the SM Sport RX3S, or more well known around the world, the Zongshen RX3S. So it's a twin cylinder, we call it a 400cc bike. The power is quite interesting. It's a bit more powerful than my Versys. It's 36 horsepower at 9,000 RPM. It has a torque of 35 Newton meter at 6,500 RPM, which make it more torque than the Royal Enfield Himalayan and even more torque than the SOIB Adventure 400. So more powerful, more torque. Same weight as the Royal Enfield, I mean almost, it's 200 kilo, where the Royal Enfield is 191. But you have a 20 liter tank, so you have more, you can cover more distance. You have ABS. Unfortunately, you cannot switch it off, except if you take off the fuse. And no central stand, and a configuration of wheel of 17 in the rear, 19 in the front. Plus and minus on that bike, plus is equipment, definitely. The Zongshen or SM Sport RX3S is completely equipped with the pannier, the boxes, ABS, the plug, the USB plug and the 12-volt socket. You have a huge TFT screen, you have the crash bar, you have everything you need actually on that bike to go for an adventure. And I just test ride it recently, and honestly I really appreciated that bike, and I think that she has only one competitor. It's the bike that we are going to see right now. So right now we are going to talk about the KTM 390 Adventure. So this bike is actually very interesting because it's a single cylinder that developed the biggest power of all the bike that we have talked until now. It's 43.5 horsepower at 9,500 RPM, a very good torque of 35.3 Newton meter at 7,000 RPM. Perfect torque for adventure. It has a ground clearance of 200 millimeter, which make exactly the same ground clearance as my Versys. The weight is 158 kilo. The tank is a 14-liter tank, but same thing with the consumption now. You will be able to do around 350 kilometers with a full tank. The good part is the equipment. You have ABS that you can switch off. You don't have any central stand. And in terms of configuration, of wheel configuration, you have a 17 rear and a 19 front, but it cast aluminum wheel, which is a bit weird. We don't understand why they didn't put just spoke wheel on that bike. It's a huge controversy. Now it's also the most expensive bike of this classment for now, for this listing right now, because it's 115 million. So it's 7,000 euro on the road in Indonesia, in Bali. Compared to the SM Sport that we just talked before, the SM Sport was 98 million, so 6,000. There is 1,000 euro difference. So if you ask me to choose among those four bikes over there in this listing, I will say that the logical choice right now will be the SM Sport or Zongshen RX3S, because you have 36 horsepower, 35 Newton meter of torque, good power, good adventure bike and good equipment. You don't have to put the money on a crash bar or everything. You have everything on that bike. And from all those bikes, I think that the SM Sport is well placed. But for sure, I'm thinking that the KTM and the image of KTM 390 Adventure will win my heart. If you ask my personal advice, which one I will choose, well, I guess I will choose the KTM. Let's talk about the four last bikes on that listing. You have in order the BMW G310 GS, the Honda CB500X, the Benelli TRK 502X, and our old mama over there, the Kawasaki Versys 650. So let's talk about the BMW G310 GS. So it's a bit weird that this 300cc go in this listing, but it's because of the price tag. The price tag of that bike in here is 172 million rupiah, which is 10,500 euro for this little BMW, thanks to the luxury tax. It's actually twice the price of my Versys, so you can buy two Versys for one little BMW for the same horsepower, 34 horsepower. But for sure, my bike developed 34 horsepower at 10,500 RPM, where this little BMW developed 34 horsepower at 9,500 RPM. And she has a bit more torque at 28 Newton meter at 7,000 RPM. This bike is a single cylinder injection, same ground clearance with my bike, approximately, a bit more. It's 220 millimeter, just like a Royal Enfield Himalayan. It weighed 170 kilo, so exactly the same weight with my Versys 250. 11 liter of tank, and an ABS that you can switch off. So good thing. No central stand and cast aluminum wheel, 17 at the rear, 19 in the front. So plus of that bike, I love the comportment and the behavior of this little bike. When I remember when I tried it off-road and on the road, I found that she was actually the best adventure bike that I have tried in small cc bike, because it's only a 313 cc bike. But because of the price tag, twice the price of the competitor, it was not a success in Indonesia, and it has a lot of difficulty to be sold. But I like the building quality of that bike. I will say the only negative point of that bike in here in Indonesia, it's the price. I mean, it's as expensive as the next bike on that list. Next bike is the Honda CB500X. So how can I talk about that bike? First, we're going to detail it. So the Honda CB500X in Indonesia is 175 million rupiah on the road in Bali. It's 10,700 euro on the road. So it's the same price approximately as a BMW G310 GS and as the Benelli TRK 502X, same price range. Now, she has a ground clearance which is the lowest. It's 180 millimeter, so it doesn't make in terms of adventure, especially off-road, it's a very low bike. It's 197 kilo, so it's between the BMW and the Benelli. The BMW is 170 kilo, the Benelli is 235. It has a tank of 17.3 liters, so it gives you a great range of 350 kilometer or even 400 kilometer range with a full tank. She's equipped with ABS, but you cannot turn it off, you have to take off the fuse. And she doesn't come with central stand or crash bar or a bracket for the box or equipment or 12 volt socket or anything like that. Also, she has cast wheel, just like the BMW G310 GS. So it's cast wheel, cast aluminium wheel, 17 at the rear, 19 in the front. So compared to the Benelli, she's a bit lower in terms of equipment. Plus and minus of the Honda CB500X, definitely the plus is the image of Honda in Indonesia. This bike is really easy to resell in Indonesia, and I will say that the quality of the maintenance of the network in here, but you have to go to the big bike maintenance, because in Bali, for example, you have only one shop that can really maintain those big bikes. Now the negative part is that it's if you really want to equip that bike to do adventure touring around Indonesia, you will have to spend a lot of money to have skid plate, crash bar, luggage, 12 volt socket, etc, etc, etc. So it will make that bike really expensive. You will pass the bar of 190 million, so you will pass the bar of 11,000, 12,000 euro for that bike. The Benelli TRK 502X, which is a 500cc and a truly adventure bike. So if I had to choose between the BMW or the Benelli, it would be definitely the Benelli. Exactly the same price, I mean only 2 million rupiah more, 173,800,000, so 10,600 euro. So 100 euro more than the BMW G310 GS. Then for that price, the Benelli provide you with a twin cylinder engine developing 48 horsepower at 8,500 RPM, 45 Newton meter of torque at 5,000, so it's a true adventure bike. And I will say that with the configuration of the engine, you have to know that the piston of this twin cylinder are actually turning like a single cylinder, because instead of having the cylinder like the two piston going this way, so they go together like that, and it gives you the feeling to have more hump and more torque, just like if you had a single cylinder. So I really like the Benelli TRK for that. Otherwise, in terms of ground clearance, it's exactly the same ground clearance as the BMW G310 GS. It's 220 millimeter. Unfortunately, the weight is way bigger because that's the heaviest bike on this listing. It's 235 kilo. It has a 20-liter tank. Very interesting because then it will give you a very good range for touring around Indonesia. I love the fact that she's well equipped. You have an ABS that you can switch off with one button, with the pressure on the button. She has also a central stand, so it's easy to do the maintenance of your chain and or to change the tire or to take care of the bike. She has also good configuration with spoke wheel, 17 at the rear, 19 in the front. And I will say that the plus minus of that bike are the following. Plus you have all the equipment, crash bar, USB plug. It's already with the bracket and the top box. Good equipment. You have nothing to do. You don't have to transform the bike. She even has a skid plate, but you will have for sure protect. You will have to for sure to protect the oil filter. But I will say that for that price tag, it's a all already ready adventure motorcycle, and she is in my heart one of the best adventure motorcycle that you can find right now in Indonesia, even if you have to deal with the weight that is 235 kilo. But as I said previously in this video, the reason I wanted to upgrade my Versys 250 is because I realized that when you travel and when you have a lot of luggage and you put the panniers and the box full plus your tent and a 35-liter bag in the passenger seat, you will feel very good on the Benelli TRK 502X because it's like a tank, 235 kilo, and then it will be very stable. You will feel safe on board, and the comfort of it, the seat is a dream. So I love that bike, and let's see where she go on my heart at the end of that listing. And the last bike that we are going to talk about in this video is the old Kawasaki Versys 650, a beautiful twin-cylinder, parallel twin, that develops 69 horsepower at 8,500 RPM. It's the most powerful bike in this list, and 64 Newton meter of torque at 7,000 RPM. Makes a real beast on the road. Now the price tag is 192 million on the road, which is 11,700 euro. The weight is 216 kilo. Ground clearance is very low, it's 170 millimeter, and that comes from the fact that you have 17-inch rear wheel and 17 front wheel. So it's an adventure bike on the road. It doesn't go well off-road, and I even studied the possibility of transforming that bike with a 17 rear, 19 front. But honestly, it's a nightmare to find the accessories and the spare part to do that in here in Indonesia. You will have to adapt the braking system, the two discs, the two caliper and everything. It's a bit of a nightmare. Otherwise, it's a 21-liter tank. It has ABS that you cannot switch off, and it doesn't have any central stand. It's a good touring bike, but on the road, so you cannot really take that bike off-road. So if I had to choose between the BMW G310 GS, the Honda CB500X, the Benelli TRK 502X, and the Kawasaki Versys 650, I will choose the Benelli TRK 502X because I think that it's the most adventure-ready bike right now on the Indonesian market at a reasonable price. So that's it, guys. I hope you liked this video. Like it if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, like usual. Subscribe if you want to, put the notification bell if you want to help this channel, and see you soon for other adventure. Bye bye.